Hey, Paul.
Walt, how are you?
Great. How about you?
I'm well. Hey, should we do a quick sound check for the video and make sure it plays okay?
That'd be great. Yeah, let's go ahead.
Okay, so I will share the video and we'll see how it plays.
On Tuesday, October 17th, 1989.
Do you hear it?
I can hear it. Can you turn up the volume a little bit?
How about this? Is this better?
Yeah, a little bit.
It sounds like the audio is not being taken up by Zoom and you're having to get it from maybe the speaker of my...
Maybe. Hey, AJ.
Hey.
Are you Eric?
It's his account.
Got it. What would Paul have to do to get the video through Zoom instead of his local speaker?
Oh, the sound?
Yeah. He's trying to play this video.
Yeah. And I think Jeff did it last time. Let me just check with Jeff really quickly. The audio came from his side. Just give me a second.
Okay. You probably have to share the audio as well, Paul. Somehow. I'm not sure though. How
Yep.
to.
So let me see if it gives me any options on my screen sharing. Recording to the cloud. Oh, I guess that's something you're doing. Customize and control Google Zoom.
Let me see.
Ah, share computer sound.
Okay.
How's that?
Yep, that's it. Share computer sound.
How's the quality of the video? Is it taking up all of your screen?
Not really, no.
How about if I go like that?
Yes.
Okay, that's what I'll do.
You still have to kind of turn up the volume if you can.
Okay, so let's see. We've got a volume icon down here. So that gives me my headset. So let's talk about speakers. That says it's at 100. And I wonder if there's an in video control for Movie Maker for Windows. I don't see a volume control.
Hmm.
I'm going to turn it on so it's playing.
Oh yeah, there you go.
Is that better volume? But it's still not very loud, right?
On Tuesday, October 17th, 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake was felt from Los Angeles to the Oregon border. The cities of Santa Cruz and Watsonville, each only about 10 miles from the epicenter, sustained heavy damage as collapsing buildings.
So that last one did it?
Yep.
Oh yeah, it was actually very loud at this point.
Good.
So,
Okay.
yeah.
19 loud. Very good.
And for, let me also, while I'm testing my sharing, trying this one. Does that give a pleasing size?
Yeah, it's about 3/4 of the screen.
And how about if I do this? Does that make any difference?
No.
I don't think it. Try clicking it again.
Let me try changing the share. Maybe I need to go to the other share. PowerPoint slideshow. Okay, how does that work?
Still the same.
There you
Still
go.
the same?
Oh,
Oh,
now
it's a
it's
little
good.
bit bigger now. A little bit
Okay,
bigger. That
very
works.
good. On my screen, it's chewing off the bottom of the slide, about maybe 5% of it or so. Does it do the same on yours?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Wonder what I can do there. Probably incompatible format. Looks like 3x4 versus widescreen translation issue. So that one, but in any case, this version of the slideshow was better than the 3/4 version.
Just a little bit bigger, but it's very readable.
Okay, good enough.
Yep.
Well, with that, I'll take a quick bio break and be back.
Sound good.
Good.
I
Well,
hope we get a couple more people in here.
Yeah. Well, did you want to handle the questions as well?
I can, yes.
Yeah, up to you. I was just gonna introduce or just kick it off and hand it to you, and then you, if you wanted to take over from there.
All right, let's do that.
So what are the Reduvio Airport staff all out of town because of the, county being shut down there for August?
Well, I'm not sure what you mean.
Well, I don't know. Is Eric around or is Ken around? I say we had a county airport commission meeting scheduled. It got canceled.
Oh, well, Eric is on vacation. Ken is around. As far as I know, all the stuff, there's no reduction at the airport, but Eric is on vacation. That's why you have this mess today.
Yeah, I was just curious why they canceled the county airports commission meeting. We haven't had one for a long time. And all of a sudden it's scheduled and then canceled.
Oh, really? I didn't see that.
So what's going on the proposal for South County? Are they making any progress on that?
Well, thank you ask. Well, so as far as we know, there's only one bidder for the FBO, and it seems like the county has a problem dealing with that. It seems like. Don't know, but they're not telling. The timeline has passed where they were supposed to inform the winning bidder about their position, which they have not done anything as far as I know. So I'm not sure what's holding up progress here.
Kind of hard to understand some of that because somebody had an open mic and a lot of background noise.
I don't hear any background noise. So we have 6 participants right now.
I guess you didn't hear the background noise because you were the speaker, so you were talking. But there was a bunch of shuffling noise in the background. I don't know what was going on.
While I was talking?
Yeah.
Really? Well, I don't know.
Maybe it was Walt. No, I'm just kidding.
Maybe it's the house ghost moving around.
Maybe my microphone was feeding back to my headphone, bouncing off the desk when I put the headset down.
Oh, that could be it. It kind of sounded a scrapey little noise.
How about
Yeah, it
this?
sounded
How's
like
it
somebody
sound?
was wood carving.
All right. I think we let wait a couple more minutes for other people to join us.
Okay.
So we need to bring Jeff back in about a year or so.
Yeah.
See what the latest development is of his work.
Yeah. Absolutely. He'd be more than happy to. He really enjoyed it. So
Oh, good. Okay.
he'll be back. He'll be back.
Excellent.
There's a couple other groups out there that I could reach out to. One is doing something similar. It's called Stereo, which basically is emergency response. So working with CAL FIRE on a lot of the fires. And they're actually going to be running some live unmanned tests soon. So we could bring that group in as well.
Excellent. You can make it a series.
Yeah. We got all the time in the world now.
Oh,
Well, it looks like I don't have cursor control to advance the slides when I do the full screen version of it, so I'll have to do the 3/4 version.
all right.
So if you do the 3/4 version, does that have the lower part of the screen visible then that was cut off before?
It will, so that's the benefit, huh?
By the way, Penny's also here watching this. We're going to probably turn off the video though, because I think we have to eat some dinner.
Enjoy dinner. All right.
Been on Zoom meetings all day long.
You will. Jeez. Okay. Well, I think we should probably get going here.
Okay.
All right.
All right. I'll start us off here and then hand it back over to Walt. So welcome everybody to our speaker series. My name is AJ. I'm the treasurer of the Aero Club, and I'll be filling in for Eric as the host of today's meeting. If it's your first time, welcome to our speaker series. We try to do these as often as we can. We bring in aviation professionals from a wide range of different professions to give some interesting talks about the work that they've been doing. As you may know, our Crystal Eagle has been canceled this year due to the COVID pandemic, but we're not canceling our mission, which is to award students with scholarships, which will help propel them into aviation careers. Our goal is still the same as each year, which is $6,000 total, awarded to 3 aviation students. If you enjoy this talk, if you have a chance, please do consider donating. A little bit can really go a long way in a student's career, especially in these trying times. I'll go ahead and post the link to our GoFundMe page in the comments in a short time. But with that, I'll hand over the meeting to Walt and have Walt introduce today's speaker, and also Walt will be handling the questions. If you do have questions for our speaker, please go ahead and enter them in the comments, and we'll get to them at the end of the meeting. With that, I'll hand it off to Walt.
Well, thank you, AJ. Thanks for running the show here. AJ is our treasurer, the Aero Club treasurer, so an important person to know. And yeah, so I just want to reinforce the plea for donating money to the organization so we can support scholarships, which we do every year. With that, I would like to introduce Paul Marshall. Paul Marshall is speaking to us tonight about DART. And quick background on Paul. He's the president of CalDART. CalDART is a subdivision of Cal Pilots. And the mission of CalDART is, as you will hear from Paul, to support the DART operations in different airports. Paul is also president of SCAPA. SCAPA, that's the South County Pilot Association. As well as Paul was a recipient of the NA award that we in the Aero Club hand out every year to a number of accomplished individuals. So Paul received the NA award last year at the Crystal Eagle dinner, which unfortunately we don't have this year. And furthermore, Paul is obviously engaged with Santa Clara County Emergency Management Association in his capacity as the CalDART president. he also transports doctors to places like Mexico with Liga, and that's the Flying Doctors of Mercy organization. So he's doing that, as well as flying for the Young Eagles program. Up to date, he has flown about 230 children, flown with 230 children, which obviously makes a big impact on most of these children being in the airplane for the first time. So thank you, Paul, for that. Paul is also a formation pilot, flying with the Beach Boys once in a while. Beach Boys being B-E-E-C-H. And great show. They have been flying at Airport Day last year at Reed Hillview, and it was very impressive. So with that, I want to pass it on to Paul to talk to us about the DART program. A number of airports are participating in this program. Paul and I worked very closely to set up the operation at Reed Hillview Airport, which is now operational. And there's a couple of others in the works right now. So, Paul, welcome to the show.
Well, Walter, thank you for that fabulous introduction. And you know, this is a very intimate little group. If it's okay, I'd like to spend just a couple minutes hearing from each person in the audience, what your name is, how long you've been a pilot, if you are a pilot, which airport you fly out of, and any special things you're looking to get out of tonight's presentation. And so let's start with AJ. How about you?
Yep, I've been a pilot for 9 years. I work at NASA Ames Research Center, and I fly out of Reed Hillview.
Very good. Ron, how about you?
I've been a pilot since 1975. Wound up buying a Cessna 172, brand new Cessna 172, and before taking any lessons, learned to fly in it with my wife, Penny. We still have that airplane. We also have a Blanca Viking. They're both based at San Jose International. We don't fly that much anymore, but still a lot of fun, and you know, enjoy participating in a lot of aviation events. I serve on the San Jose City Airport Commission, the County Airport Commission, Airports Commission, and the County Airport Land Use Commission. So I've been involved in a lot of aviation stuff over the years.
Good. And Walter, I know you well. And Bob, I know you well. Bob Moragas is a fellow Beach Boy. Doug, how about you? You'll need to unmute yourself. At the lower left-hand corner of your screen, that's where your mute button is if it's a PC. Well, while Doug's figuring out how to unmute himself, we'll move on to Anita. How about you? No, Anita? Okay. And Doug, I saw your lips moving, but I didn't hear you say anything. Michael McCarthy, how about you?
Yeah, I've been flying on and off since I was in high school, but been a little bit more off than on. Recently decided to get back into it, and I purchased a Cessna 206, which is, of course, great for hauling people and things. I thought this might be a great opportunity to help out while, you know, just getting a chance to fly. So I'm kind of interested in what the program's all about.
Good. And Doug, did your audio come back? Doesn't sound like it did. Yeah. Okay. Don Blevins, how about you?
I've been flying for 15 years. I'm a professional pilot, first officer at Spirit Airlines. Before that, I was the captain for 4 years at GoJet Airlines. And I enjoy flying Michael McCarthy's 206 as well. So if he's not around, I'll be happy to help as much as I can.
That's awesome. And Carissa Reyes, how about you?
Hello. I graduated 141 school, and I was in the East Coast, and then I got accidentally tuned into the 91 135 world at Teterboro and Westchester, and I fell madly in love. I ended up doing logistics and dispatch for them, which I now was doing with at San Jose for other companies. And I just love aviation, and I try to stay very active with different aviatrix groups and aviator groups, kind of anything NASA nerd, aeronautics, fluid dynamic, airplane. I just love it, just my maddest passion. And there's so many great people. So thank you for having this event.
Wow, I'm impressed. And Carissa, DART has a ton of logistics in it. So if you ever want to get involved with the DART, we can use a person with logistics skills.
Well, thank you. I appreciate that.
You're welcome. And Michelle Tripp, I guess I know a little bit about you, but go ahead.
Hi, everyone. Yeah, Paul, it's good to see you again. Let's see, I've been flying off and on since about high school, but like someone mentioned before, it's more off than on now because I'm in school getting a master's in human factors. But I know I've worked with DART a little bit, but I'd love to hear you talk more about just how regular people can get involved, because a lot of people don't know that this kind of group exists. And so, yeah, I would just love to learn more about that so I can share it with other people so that they can get involved.
Well, wonderful. Okay. Well, with all that done, let's go ahead and go into the presentation. So I'm going to work this share screen, which should be this one right here. Does everybody see GA disaster lift at your airport popping up on your screen?
Yes.
Okay,
Yes.
that is good. So, so at any rate, this is GA disaster lift at your airport. Hopefully, most everybody here has their own airport. This picture is from a SCAPA DART exercise from many years ago. That's Jim Peterson, our president of many years, working with a local CERT volunteer. CERT is a community emergency response team. Our DARTs love to partner with emergency groups out in the community, and CERT is a very analogous group to DART. CERT people work in the neighborhoods for the city emergency manager, so they can work with DART as well. Let's go to the next slide. So a little bit about what we're going to talk about tonight. We'll start out with the CalDART introduction, then we'll go on to the FEMA earthquake disaster scenario for the Bay Area. FEMA's done a lot of emergency planning for a big one. Then we'll move into disaster transport applications for general aviation. How might general aviation respond in such a disaster as FEMA designs? Next step would be an introduction to DARTs. Just an overview. Some of you are in DARTs, like I know Walt and Michelle, you've been in DARTs quite a bit. So this may be old hat for you. And then going into some pictures from exercises, and some of these are quite new. As well as a COVID-19 operation summary. That's been the most exciting thing for CalDART is we've been working and evolving for 11 years, but this COVID-19, we've really done a lot of flying. So it's fun to really spread our wings and do something for real and not just for practice. So our mission statement for CalDART, well, it got pretty close to it. At the California DART Network, we prepare California pilots and ground personnel to provide volunteer air transportation services to benefit communities experiencing a major earthquake, flood, or other event. This year, for instance, the other event is COVID-19, which degrades regional surface transportation. And so we've actually had some feedback from people in emergency management that we should try to stretch out and not just do surface transportation substitution applications. And so COVID-19 is such an example where we've been of service even though it hasn't wiped out the freeways.
Oh,
Yes, sir.
I'll say your slides haven't advanced if you
They haven't advanced. Okay, so you are not looking at what I'm looking at. So I'm going to stop. Actually, I'm going to change the share.
there we go.
Thank you. Thank you for the timely call. So I've got 3 of them. Let's try screen 1. No, let's try screen 2. And let's try this. Okay, try this one. Have you got the picture of all the little red dots?
Yeah.
Good. Okay, so let me show you what you missed. This is the mission statement.
Got it.
And the presentation overview, none of them are real big. So let's go to the red dots. So I mentioned that FEMA's done a lot of disaster planning for the Bay Area. They've got a couple of major scenarios they look at. This is the scenario that says we've got a 7.9 earthquake on the San Andreas Fault somewhere near the Golden Gate Bridge. And in the third day of the disaster, so there's been some chance to repair things. All of this red and yellow and green represents status of different transportation segments in the community. The red dots are bridges and overpasses that have fallen. So you can see on day 3 that there's not much connectivity at all for the Bay Area. So this is a major, major disruption that would cause all kinds of death and heartache, potential starvation, and other problems. So of course, pilots would want to help out in such a scenario. And look at California, all the airports we have in Northern California and the Bay Area, tons and tons of them, which could each be staging areas for mounting a logistics transportation operation. In California, for instance, we have 28,000 aircraft and 54,000 pilots. A lot of those people would want to be of assistance. And a lot of those aircraft would be available. So a goal of CalDART is to try to put as many people to work who want to volunteer to help. If you break it down into the Bay Area, you'll see that we have 6,000 aircraft and 12,000 pilots in the Bay Area. That's a ton. If we could get 10% of them, we would have an enormous flotilla of aircraft to go out and help the community. So that's our raw resource, and that's what stimulated us to go big with CalDART and make it a statewide organization. So how could all these airports be used in the Bay Area? Here's one possible example where we could have just each airport being a node in a transportation grid, and where you can't drive on the freeway and get around, you could certainly fly between airport to airport and do the longer legs of your transportation. So that would be one application. Another application grows on that. Can you see my cursor moving around, Walt?
Yes.
Okay, so for instance, Oakland and San Francisco, both of their runways are built on landfill right next to the water with an altitude elevation something like 3 feet or 5 feet. They might be out of service in an earthquake. San Jose International might be the only remaining airport in the Bay Area, international airport, that's still serviceable. So how could we try to make San Jose be of service to the entire Bay Area? Well, one way you could do it is having San Jose International Airport giving you your national and international flights. Maybe do a bus shuttle across town to Reed Hillview. And with Reed Hillview, you'd have the ability to transport people from San Jose to all parts of the Bay Area and get some semblance of air service going. So next. Another kind of a catastrophe is an application is where you do many point to one point. You have a single point of need. And that's the Loma Prieta earthquake of 1989. The earthquake happened in the forest of Nicene Marks, just a few miles from the Watsonville Airport. With very good luck, the Watsonville Airport was in service. Principally all the highways through the mountains were cut, and the grocery stores could not get their groceries, and it started to get very uncomfortable after just a few days. And so we had pilots at Reed Hillview, Concord Buchanan, Hamilton Army Air Base, Half Moon Bay, and San Carlos over the course of several days spooled up relief efforts that brought food and supplies into Watsonville. And I'd like to show a video of that real briefly. So that's going to be a new share. Stay with me. We'll go to the video here. And Walt, make sure that this comes up with the same size and quality and volume that we were looking for in the beginning, okay?
All right.
On Tuesday, October 17, 1989, the Loma Prieta earthquake was felt from Los Angeles to the Oregon border. The cities of Santa Cruz and Watsonville, each only about 10 miles from the epicenter, sustained heavy damage as collapsing buildings killed 5 people. The earthquake destroyed 200 homes in Watsonville and damaged another 1,100, leaving over 2,000 people in tent camps and temporary shelters. Highway 17 was blocked by a massive landslide and would not completely reopen for 32 days. A collapsed bridge closed Highway 1 at Struve Slough. Highways 152, 129, and many roads in the Santa Cruz Mountains were also closed, hindering access to the areas which most needed help. And although it could not run its own printing press, a fresh copy of Watsonville's Register Pajaronian newspaper was available the day after the earthquake, October 18th. It had been printed in San Luis Obispo and flown into Watsonville Municipal Airport. In the coming days, all of Santa Cruz County would benefit from the lifeline that Watsonville Airport provided to the outside world. Within 20 hours after the earthquake, military C-130 aircraft delivered a crew of Federal Emergency Management Agency personnel who would inspect and red tag unsafe structures and evaluate the extent of the earthquake damage. Subsequent C-130 flights into Watsonville would deliver emergency supplies and retrieve FEMA personnel. California Department of Forestry helicopters used the airport as they battled several fires started by the earthquake. Army Red Cross helicopters were based at the airport, ready to evacuate earthquake victims. The Navy also flew in 2 Black Hawk helicopters carrying several tons of emergency relief supplies. To prevent further shaking of unstable buildings, the airport traffic pattern was changed to keep flights of these helicopters and all other aircraft away from the city of Watsonville. The terminal at Watsonville Airport became the staging area for FEMA workers, military officials, and medical personnel. State and federal officials also arrived by air, and the media followed. While the Federal Aviation Administration closed off Watsonville Airport to all flights except those delivering emergency relief, most incoming flights were still made in privately owned aircraft. Pilots from all around the Bay Area volunteered to deliver donated supplies to Watsonville residents in need. On Thursday, October 19th, the Food Bank of Contra Costa County asked Linda Meloche at Buchanan Field in Concord if several tons of food could be delivered to Watsonville by air. Calling on volunteer pilots, Linda organized an airlift that delivered 40,000 pounds of food in 100 flights by early Friday afternoon. Bill Dunn and John McAvoy organized an airlift from Reed Hillview Airport that began Saturday, October 21st. By Sunday evening, Reed Hillview pilots had conducted 300 flights using 80 aircraft, transporting 250,000 pounds of much-needed food, water, clothing, and camping equipment to Watsonville. Everything had been donated, including the supplies, planes, and fuel. Similar airlifts were organized out of other airports. Hamilton Army Airfield pilots flew in 28,000 pounds of supplies in less than 2 hours using 50 aircraft. Pilots from Half Moon Bay and San Carlos also participated in the airlift, delivering thousands of pounds of supplies to Watsonville. In the days following the earthquake, the tarmac at Watsonville Airport was crowded with unloading aircraft. There was so much air traffic that the FAA brought in a temporary air traffic control tower. The California Conservation Corps provided help moving the incoming supplies as 5 hangars were filled with goods destined for local disaster relief organizations. Ultimately, over 1,000 airlift flights delivered 500,000 pounds of emergency supplies to the Second Harvest Food Bank alone. Watsonville Airport provided speedy access to the county hardest hit by the Loma Prieta earthquake. And when Watsonville needed it most, hundreds of Bay Area volunteer pilots flew in emergency supplies.
Okay, so that's the Loma Prieta earthquake. And let me just do a sound check. Walt, can you hear me loud and clear? Okay, thank you, AJ. So next slide. So here's the California DART network airport map. The red dots are where we have DART operators today. So we have them up in Santa Rosa, Half Moon Bay, Reed Hillview, San Martin, Watsonville, Santa Monica, and Torrance. We're looking at our next exercise in October to add additional operators: Concord, Buchanan, Palo Alto, Angwin, Parrot Field, and San Diego. So that would be about 50% growth this year if we can do it. And before I leave that slide, let me just mention, you'll see many white dots. There's about another 22 airports as of the last count. This was done about 6 months ago, where people have joined CalDART, but they don't actually have a DART operator working at their airport. It's important to know that people can be a part of CalDART, whether they're in a full-fledged operator or whether they're just a lone outpost at their particular airport. So FEMA recognized DART about 4 years ago for the South County Airport pilots, SCAPA DART, and got an honorable mention for individual and community preparedness. In terms of disaster transport needs, they're pretty basic. There's all kinds of passengers that need a ride. They can be first responders, medical personnel, evacuating families, reconnecting families, evacuating senior citizens, whether they be out of nursing homes or other, evacuating persons with medical disabilities. If you're on oxygen or you need steady power, you may not be able to stay in a disaster environment. And hospitals may be offloading their ambulatory patients to out-of-region hospitals so that they can handle the badly injured ones. Also, light cargo is an application. Food is what was mostly transported in Watsonville. Water is a big problem in hot areas when the water systems are down. Pharmaceuticals, water filtration, other medical supplies, things like that. And those are areas where a small plane and a fleet of small planes can really make a big assist to the community's disaster response. So the Watsonville effort was ad hoc. Nobody had to prepare ahead of time. So one legitimate question is, why bother with preparing ahead of time? So the reason why you bother is so that you can spool up service faster. You can get more utilization of the service by the community because they've had an exercise with you every year, so they're aware of how they can use their airport to help them out in a disaster. You can spool it up not only faster, but to larger size, so that we've had a chance to work logistics with each other many times in practice. We can call on our buddies and get a whole lot of people going at the same time. And finally, record keeping. DART comes with a complete set of forms. In not every disaster will you have the ability to keep track of all the records, but the mechanisms are in place to do a fairly basic, decent job. So there's secondary benefits of the DART. A lot of our airports have a large segment of the surrounding community that doesn't like them. This is one more way to get your community to love your airport. Pilots have another way to practice their love of flying. And so it helps everyone. So there's many different ways to participate. Organizing a DART operator is a big one. If you're going to do that in an airport, somebody's got to find somebody to chair it. That person hopefully can recruit a few assistants so they don't have to do it all themselves. Then everybody that's starting it up joins CalDART, which includes the Cal Pilots membership. And you have an annual practice at your home airport, starting simple and every year adding a wrinkle or two so that you can build your skill set. And you invite others in the community to participate. And this is important because you want your community to know that the airport can be of value to them, and you want to practice on how to use it and who gets involved and how to get people to the airport, away from the airport. How would you do a food drive? All these kinds of questions you can work on in the comfort of a low-key practice environment, much better than a real emergency. And of course, you get your press and television to cover it as well. So finally, you can request and provide mutual aid at these exercises. So at last year's group, we had all 7 DART operators around the state connected by ham radio, and we had multiple operations going between airports. So another way to participate, if you're not a DART operator, maybe you're just a single person at an airport, you can still support the regional practice mobilizations by volunteering to help when they have their annual practice. You can educate your community on telling them about what DART is and how it can help the airport, and you can reach out to volunteer organizations active in disaster within your community to get to know them better, so that when there is a disaster, you can help bring aviation in to help your community out, even if you don't have a DART operator. And of course, you join CalDART, which gets you into the information flow for doing all of that. CalDART has a disaster airlift response plan that it makes available to all of its member chapters. And it provides the basics. It provides a way that we all work more or less in the same way, so that it's very easy to plug and play people between DART groups around the state. So this is the table of contents to give you a sense of what's there. We'll look at just a little bit of it. So here is a org chart, and I'll emphasize that DART supports the incident command system that's defined by FEMA. And the idea is that the very first person who shows up is in charge. And as you get additional people showing up, they lend a hand and help out, and your organization responding to the catastrophe gradually grows. This particular one shown here has gotten fairly big. You have an operations director, and by the way, we have new versions of documentation coming out where this operations director will be called an incident commander, a DART incident commander. And they have a lot of people helping them. They have an emergency communications facilitator, such as a ham radio operator, aviation radio operator. They have a volunteer manager that's calling up people to come down to the airport and help out and signing them in when they get there. They have a flight operations manager who organizes the pilots and the planes and makes sure that all the pilots are safe to operate and that any aviation safety issues in the emergency environment have properly been dealt with. We have a ramp operations manager who can provide assistance to pilots as they load and unload their planes. A materiel manager who checks in stuff that needs to be flown and people that need to be flown somewhere, and a whole crew that helps out. Of course, there's a lot of crew and staff in all these departments. You can have a public relations coordinator that works with the outside, as well as people photographing and videoing the area. I haven't really, so this is like a working day group of people. There'd be one other person that would be working on the working day. That would be your external agencies liaison. They deal with the Emergency Operations Center, the police department, and other people out in the community. This says background work throughout the year. There's your DART co-chairs. Somebody has to make the binders. Somebody has to put the training sessions together. Somebody has to recruit people to join the DART. That's the kind of stuff that happens all year long. This is down below is what happens on the day of the incident. So FEMA has created something called the National Incident Management System. A lot of times people ask, well, where does DART fit in? So DART, the Disaster Airlift Response Team, is a volunteer organization that's active in disaster. And it interfaces with its local mutual aid groups, the private sector, which is your VOADs, volunteer organizations active in disaster. They in turn interface into the Emergency Operations Center. So some portion of you are in Santa Clara County. Santa Clara County has a group called Cadre that's the recognized VOAD for Santa Clara County. All the community organizations coordinate their emergency relief through the Cadre, and Cadre then is in touch with the Emergency Operations Center for the county. But that's our point. So the individual DART operator has CalDART working above them to help out and deal with statewide issues. CalDART itself is a member of the Air Care Alliance, which is a nationwide group of public benefit flying companies that all fly under Part 91 operations. And I say they're public benefit flying corporations, not so much companies. They may have one or two or a dozen paid staff, but mostly they're people who arrange for pilots to fly people with medical issues and that sort of thing. So flight mission parameters, the flights are operated in accordance with FAA Part 91 regulations. We don't do commercial. So these are non-commercial volunteer operations. There's no charge to the passengers or the people getting cargo flown. We use insured and certificated pilots. They have to show their pilot license, medical certificate, or medical documentation, and $1 million of insurance for their aircraft. They're flying either certificated aircraft. Some people will fly home-built experimental aircraft. We only do normal flight operations, flying between airports, the kind of things we do every day. Responsibilities is logistics. So Carissa, this is you. The DART ground crew and management handles the ground logistics, and they are difficult. And that's what makes people tear their hair out. And the pilots get to do what they love, which is flying. So examples of missions that we don't fly are air ambulance, because most of our planes don't have FAA certificated restraints, passenger restraints for anybody in a stretcher. We don't do helicopter winch rescue, even though we have a few helicopters at our airports, and other kinds of specialty applications that are not the kind of flying we do every day. So for safety purposes, it's up to the flight operations manager and the pilots, and for that matter, the passengers. Anybody uncomfortable with the mission just declines to do it. Safety and risk management. Aviation regulations are written in blood. So a lot of what we practice and work on in CalDART is how to do our work safely. So we want to have knowledgeable and capable people on the DART management team. If we have a ramp crew, we want the people out on the ramp to be experienced working around airplanes and walking around a ramp. Flight safety, there's a lot of different aspects that improve safety of flight operations, requiring certificated pilots, requiring airworthy and insured planes, checking credentials. The flight ops manager has a chance to interview each pilot and make sure he's happy to use that pilot. And the flight operations manager is looking at proposed operations to make sure they sound like normal operations. We have the material group, which weighs the material to be shipped and weighs the passengers, so that assists pilots in not getting into weight and balance problems. Although the balance certainly does remain the responsibility of the pilot. The weight is equally shared between the flight operations group, which loads the aircraft, and the pilot, which reviews the documentation and accepts it. Liability waivers. Everybody involved with it, whether they're ground volunteers, the pilots, or the public, signs the liability waiver. And we have a written plan. Of course, having a plan and practicing the plan is a great improvement to safety. So readiness exercises. Practice builds proficiency. It's how people get to know each other. I've been involved in emergency organizations now for about 6 years or so. And it's really a group that operates on a first name basis. Everybody in emergency management in your community knows each other, and they have a tremendous number of contacts throughout the state. These exercises is how we start building our contacts so that we can plug in very quickly and easily when an emergency happens. At your airport, you might set up a DART operations area. So for instance, at this airport, if people are landing on runway 32, they can taxi back, turn into the ramp, get loaded, come back out the ramp, exit and go out. You get a nice circular flow where planes aren't getting in each other's way. You might set up a perimeter. You'll see this orange line here. That might be safety rope, where you can have benches and an operating area and even let the public into your ramp area that's cordoned off from the actual parked and moving planes. If you're lucky, you'll get a free hangar at the airport to store your DART gear. There's all kinds of goodies you can collect. Wagons to move material around, refrigerators, hot water heaters, generators, amateur radios and antennas, a portable operation shelter. This one happens to be on wheels, so it can be moved out onto the ramp. Here, people are setting up. You'll see one mast already installed and a second one going up. This is for amateur radio and an aviation radio. We have binders that are already printed and ready to go, so that a lot of times the manager won't know their job till the day of, and it helps them greatly when there's a binder that's all set up for them, including a first page which summarizes what their duties are, and then all of the things that they're responsible for, all the forms they have to fill out, they're all right there. Here's some people coming in from San Jose International to support a DART exercise. Here, when you have setup in the morning, you'll have a group briefing before you actually open for operations. And at the same basis, at the end of the day, you'll have a hot wash, which is a debrief to discuss what went well and what didn't go so well during the day's exercise. You can have labels printed out ahead of time, adhesive labels that can mark all the material that people drop off. So if it gets dumped in a pile, it can be traced back to a log and an aircraft load sheet. You'll want to include your emergency personnel out in the community. This is the Gilroy Fire Administrative Captain who's in charge of emergency management for the city of Gilroy. You'll want to reach out to other pilots. In this case, this is Bob Tucknut Standing. He's the a past president of the Western States Alliance of Sheriff's Air Squadrons. He was coming down to help out and be a mutual aid aviation resource. This is a operation held at San Martin Airport a few years back. You'll see operations throughout central Northern California, even one as far away as Bellingham, Washington. That was 709 miles, IFR flight. There was bad weather in Washington. With a load of food, this particular exercise was collecting food for a food bank. All the volunteers brought in food, and a local store up in Bellingham, actually it was a church group, donated about 500 pounds of food that was brought into the exercise. And so here is the pilot giving the food off to the manager of the food bank, the local food bank. So Santa Monica exercise, they had a very nice exercise a while back. They were modeling a huge earthquake in Southern California with all kinds of freeway closures. They set up a network of airports in conjunction and partnership with the Red Cross, the American Red Cross, to bring blood products from various areas into the hospitals near Santa Monica. There's a complex of hospitals in that area. So that was their plan for the day. And they had everybody pose with the Red Cross at the end of their exercise. This is their operations whiteboard. They had a whiteboard tracking their various flights going out. And, you know, this is Southern California, and Santa Monica is right next door to Los Angeles. So, of course, they had a videographer, and they made a heck of a video. This is apparently a CERT member being awarded a certificate of appreciation from the American Red Cross for supporting the exercise that day. Half Moon Bay had an interesting exercise. They had the coolest RV showing up at the airport with all kinds of exotic communications gear. Look at that huge mast up there. I think they can go around the world in long wave radio with that. Half Moon Bay also did a good job of getting their local emergency medical system within the county engaged and participating in their operation. The airport manager for the county of San Mateo was there, as well as the fire department. Food transport is a good thing to practice. That's what Reed Hillview did last year. This is the first time at any DART exercise that we actually had an 18-wheeler come out to the airport. The Second Harvest Food Bank of Silicon Valley has customers in counties all around Silicon Valley. And they worked with us to model a transportation out scenario where they would bring food to the airport from their local warehouse, and we would unpack it at the warehouse and put it into planes and ship it out to 3 different airports in 3 different counties located close to where the customers were for the Second Harvest Food Bank. A very big and ambitious operation and a very good practice. So this year we've done something new. We've actually gotten involved in a real emergency deployment. Our people in San Diego got it started with something called Operation Medical Shield. We've got somebody starting the San Diego CalDART chapter who's also on the CalDART board, former police officer. And he got the ball rolling. So it started out with PPE, being donated to local San Diego hospitals, but we found there wasn't much PPE coming out of the neighborhoods. So we pivoted and we started partnering with people to have them build face shields and delivering those face shields to groups that needed it. So one of the early flights was up to Walla Walla, Washington, in support of the DART group up there, which is a part of several DARTs operating in the state of Washington. But they had a real PPE shortage, a real face shield shortage in Walla Walla. They were complaining about it, and they asked us if we could get some, and it turned out we could. So we flew them up a load of face shields. Then we had FEMA making face masks available. So we took an order of 5,000 face masks, had a fellow drive down from his home in Lincoln to Sacramento to pick them up at Mather Airport, where FEMA was giving them away. And just a couple days later, somebody flew up from Camarillo and picked up those 5,000 face shields and then flew them down to Chino Airport for Liga International. So that's the two fellows at Lincoln just after they've loaded the aircraft. And then on the left side there, you'll see a Project Open Hand in San Francisco, where they needed face shields because they give out food all day long to the poor people of San Francisco, and they wanted better personal protection. So they got their face shields. We had to fly them up to Noss Field, which isn't really in San Francisco, but it's in the county next door. And it turns out that somebody that worked in the volunteer organization Active in Disaster Group lived just an exit or two away from the airport. So it was very convenient for them to pick up the face shields and bring them into town. Then we had I guess a trip to Cal OES. This one was quite complex. Ron Levick is on the right side here. He's the fellow starting the San Diego Cal DART. The lady in the middle is Colette Armau. She's a former senior planner with the Caltrans Division of Aeronautics. She just retired a year or two ago, and she's on the board of Cal DART. And this is the pilot who flew them both up, or who flew Ron up to Cal OES along with a couple of emergency use bag valve mask ventilators. Cal OES heard that we were going to be offering them, and we had a chance to give them to Cal OES. They had a, what do you call it, a pneumology, something like that, pneumatics specialist that wanted to see the ventilator in operation. So we flew the ventilator up to put it through its paces. We also had it checked out at Scripps Hospital. The design was from, and originally started by MIT. Rice University took it over. They put the whole design out on open source on the web, and they put in paperwork to the FDA to get it approved. It was not formally approved, but the FDA allowed it to be used in emergency situations only, because obviously if there's an emergency and you've got nothing else to do, then it's okay with the FDA if it's used. So we brought the design through Ron Levick here to the San Diego Arts Collaborative, which is one of the San Diego Collaborative Arts Project, which is one of the many builders of things around the country. They became the builder of these ventilators. And Ron was the little impresario, entrepreneur that was connecting people. He got connected to the hospital at Scripps. The Scripps CEO and the Sharp CEO, these are both hospital systems in San Diego. They wrote a letter to Donald Trump saying, we're getting overwhelmed by COVID. It's coming across the border. This is a national issue. We want you to help us. Please give help today. So this turned out to be right about the same time that Ron was working his ventilators. And we got asked by FEMA to see if we could give ventilators to the city of San Diego, who would in turn give them to the city of Tijuana. The idea being that they wanted to try to keep some of the COVID patients in Mexico rather than having them all come across the border to try to get help in San Diego and Chino and other south areas and in San Diego, which was causing a lot of trouble. So there are now 5 ventilators in Tijuana today with another 5 on the way and a total of 20 that will be built. So that was kind of interesting. Not a lot of flying in this department. Of course, we had to fly to go up to Cal OES. We had to fly to get parts from Las Vegas and to San Diego. But also a fair amount of driving with this one. So if you put it all together in COVID-19, we've delivered 17,500 face masks, 11,350 face shields, 2,400 medical gowns, 20 of these ventilators, although the ventilator development is still, or delivery is still ongoing. And these were donated by FEMA, Global Supply and Development, which is a company we partnered with now for about a year. They were at last October's exercise at Reed Hillview and San Martin. We partnered with the San Diego Youth Golf Alliance. They actually made something like 2,500 face shields all on their own. In fact, probably more, like 3,000 some. So the San Diego Youth Golf Alliance is a group of high school kids that have a passion for golf, and being out of school, they wanted to help with COVID. A lot of Chinese people in the group and Asian people. And they made they made face shields. They had some friends of theirs in a Taekwondo class called Marshal Hearts. They made a few face shields as well. So we delivered all that to 20 different charitable and medical organizations in Operation Medical Shield. So that's it. Anybody have any questions?
All right. So if you guys have any questions, go ahead and enter them in the chat, and we'll try to have Walt filter those questions and ask Paul. But that was amazing, Paul. That was really something I've never personally really known about.
Yeah, Paul, you have been instrumental in getting this going statewide, I should say. So one of the questions early on was how can get one involved? You just flashed your contact information. Maybe you want to bring this up in the chat room. So contacting you, and then you would redirect the person to whatever organization would be appropriate. Paul?
Yeah, so join CalDART at caldart.org. It intakes a lot of information, phone number, email address, pilot credentials, type of aircraft you fly, and it'll get you into the information flow, so you'll hear about that. And I'll put in my email address as well. If you have any questions, you can send it to me. So Bob Moragas writes, do your drills include other Air Care Alliance groups, Angel Flight West? So they're an escalation resource. We maintain escalation resources that we give to our DART operator leaders. And so Angel Flight West is one of our resources with phone number and contact information. Jeff, what is Winehouse or something? He is their emergency operations manager, and Jeff Morehouse. So he's out of Santa Barbara. We have contact with him. And we, of course, are a escalation resource for them as well.
Yeah, just want to mention for somebody who's interested in participating, obviously Reed Hillview in the Bay Area here, Reed Hillview is operational, but we obviously still need more people at Reed Hillview. Palo Alto is information. Carol Munch is heading up that group. So she's certainly looking for a lot more people at Palo Alto, if that's closer to where you live. So these two airports are currently in the Bay Area, if you will, with regards to DART operations. Okay.
So
anybody else?
I think I mentioned Concord, Half Moon Bay, Watsonville, San Martin, San Jose, Reed Hillview. Those are all places with DARTs that are forming or are already formed.
There you go.
Well, Walter, certainly it's been a pleasure speaking to your group. Thanks for having me aboard. I hope this has provided a decent window into what CalDART does.
Right, yeah, no, that absolutely, and great presentation and good information. Can you speak to maybe the next exercise, bigger exercise? So if people are interested, they might just want to watch and see during one of the exercises. Is there anything planned this year?
Yeah, so There's another group that runs something called the Great Shakeout, and they're going this year on October 15th. They tend to go every year in October, not far from the Loma Prieta earthquake anniversary. This will be our first year that we're aligned with the Great Shakeout, so our exercise date will be October 17th, mostly. I say mostly because every DART operator is independent, and there's one or two of them that have conflicts on October 17th, so they may do it a week before or a week after. But all those airports that I mentioned, they'll be running the exercise. They can often use an extra volunteer, or you're welcome to just come and observe. And you can volunteer as a ground volunteer, or perhaps by flying an airplane also.
Great. Yeah, yeah, excellent.
Hey, Walter, I'm curious. Has DART or DART organizations been involved in any of the I guess forest fire relief, or California has been hit with several major fires in the last handful of years. I'm just wondering, have you had any participation in the aftermath of those?
We did a little experimental reach out to the forest fire in Butte County, which was the town of Paradise. We were not at all well known to the emergency operations center there. We were not well known to the state people that were assisting them. And so they didn't really naturally use our assistance very easily. But we were there to offer our assistance. COVID-19 is really the first time that we've had a significant presence. In both the fire and in COVID-19, there really haven't been huge transportation issues, because the freeways during the fires were generally good. When they weren't good, it might be such overcast, smoky conditions that it wouldn't be safe to fly. And certainly there's TFRs that prohibit flight through the heart of the fire operation itself. So the fires were similar to COVID in that the surface transportation was doing fine, and there wasn't really a big need for the air operations to supplement it. We had to get a little bit creative. I mean, think of CalDART. Well, how on earth would we get into ventilators? So somebody was being a little imaginative when they thought of that one. And yet we've filled a need there and provided some benefit. And as far as the delivery of the free PPE goes, that's not directly part of our charter, but certainly moving PPE from where it gets built to where it gets used, and when you're giving them away hundreds at a time, it's pretty decent to go ahead and dedicate a plane to the transportation of the product. So that was a better fit, but still took a fair amount of stretch and assertiveness on our part to get into the operation. You can't just hold back and wait to have someone ask you.
Thanks. I'm just kind of curious. So if I got involved and we had some sort of an event come up, what's the expectation? What would be the organization's expectation for me as a pilot with an airplane? It's like, hey, thanks for showing up. We need you to pay for gas. We need you to pay for everything. Or when you talked about fuel was donated, planes were donated. I certainly wouldn't see a volunteer invoicing the organization for his time in the plane or maintenance. But what usually happens? Is it one of these things where they've got a fuel truck full of donated fuel to help out, or am I pulling out my credit card for things like that?
I think you should plan on pulling your credit card out. We do have hopes in the future as we gain additional mass and we get more volunteers who are willing to help. There are such things as exemptions that you can get from the FAA that allow you to reimburse your volunteers for fuel usage. However, the standard conditions on the exemptions are quite onerous and would be very difficult to be able to work in our environment. So we would likely need to create new ground in the area of exemptions, and that's what would take a while, a lot of effort and some finesse and sophistication to make happen.
Hey, Paul. So have you guys done much research or study into essentially not adding victims to the equation. Like I could imagine getting an aircraft stuck, in the wrong place because they have no way to pump fuel back into the airplane or things like that. Is that part of the model?
Well, that's why you have an organization, and that's why we have radio connections to all of our DART operators around the state with ham radio in case satellite radio and cell radio or satellite phone and cell phone is not working properly. But the more people you get on it, the experience that they have, you can have a flight operations group that's checked things out and they know what the situation is and they can bring pilots in to sensibly and rationally apply them to tasks that need to be done. Fuel scarcity is certainly a big issue to be worried about in a major disaster. The bigger the disaster, the harder it's going to be to get fuel in. We are developing, we have contacts nationally and at the state level with people who conceivably have the ability to do special things like get a tanker to fly avgas into some central point of distribution where we could get avgas pumped into our pilots' planes. They may not be able to get it at the exact airport they're going to, but someplace reasonably close. But that's an excellent example of a kind of a problem that would arise in a real event.
All right, I think you answered all questions, Paul. And hopefully
one quick one. You mentioned Buchanan. Hopefully I'll be flying out of Buchanan when the plane's out of the shop. So is there already an organization up and running there, or if you could just elaborate?
Yeah, so the group at Buchanan, this is their opening year to have a DART operator. They're still getting it going. They have 3 people that are bird dogging it. They've got good connections with the emergency community and with the CERT group that surrounds the airport. They're still working their connections to the pilots, but they have representatives from the different groups at the airport, the Concord, the Mount Diablo Pilot Association, the EAA group that does the Young Eagles, a local FBO that rents planes. So they seem reasonably well connected. And if you were to join CalDART, you would certainly, if you list Concord as your home airport, you'll get introduced to them.
Thanks.
All right, I don't see any hands, so thank you, Paul, again. Great work, and it looks like this organization coming better known to the emergency services organization, which is obviously a key for them to understand what DART can do in an emergency situation. And the more work we do in different airports, they start to realize, there's a resource we could utilize for whatever purpose. Thank you, Paul. And with that, I pass it back to AJ for last commercial. And thank you all for coming.
Thanks, Walt. And yes, I just want to echo what Walt was saying, Paul. It's really interesting. Every week we do get different kinds of speakers, so it's really nice to see all the different contributions people are making, and specifically with this year being a much different year than normal. Thank you very much. I personally didn't know very much about DART, and now I plan on clicking on that link down there and trying to see if I can volunteer somehow. So very much. Post the link to our Aero Club scholarship below. And again, if you guys have or would like to consider donating, please go ahead. But we still want to try to honor our commitment to the students and folks who are in aviation and who hope to have a career. With that, thank you very much. And we will send out another email for the next speaker series. Final thank you again, Paul, and everybody have a good night.
Thank you, everyone.
Thanks.
Thanks.